Hi. Oh, can everyone hear me?
It's booming, isn't it?
Great. I'm welcome to Keynote. Thanks, I'm done. I'm Mike. I spent the last part of my last year just attending conferences, basically. So I'm here to report to you on one of those conferences. Just pretend you didn't see this. Everyone close your eyes. Oh, there you go.
Oh, sorry.
That's alright. So this was one of them. It was the Service Design Global Conference of last year. That's my Twitter handle, so you can tweet about me talking about things that other people said. Right, so it was 3 days, it was in Cardiff, and it was awesome. If you ever get the chance, I don't know if any of you here are service designers or not, but we get along. As I said last time, I think there's a very blurry line between service design and user experience, and this conference is a great way to sort of start breaking that barrier. These slides will be made available. Yes?
Yep.
So I've got links in here to all the talks, all the slides, and everything else that's involved. Right, so I'm going to talk about high-level things as I saw them, and then I'm going to talk about these calls to action that came out during Members Day, which I found really useful. Right, so the main theme of the conference was called transformation, and as to be expected, a lot of the talks were about transformation. So you can pretty much see all of them for that particular theme, but I came up with my own little themes. Right, it is a great time to be a designer, I shit you not. This was something that just came up again and again and again. Nick Leon was like my favourite talk of the whole conference, well worth a watch, and all the rest of those guys. It came up at the other conferences that I also attended, and it's a topic of conversation that comes up again and again and again. And based on how many people are here in this room, it doesn't seem that it's a secret. Right, so Nick actually talked about a bunch of things that I thought were really important. Two big things. One was a perfect storm of technological change. He talked about, amongst other things, these 5 big revolutions that have happened over the last 5 to 10 years, and how each of these independently are bigger than the previous revolutions. So bigger than the onset of the internet, bigger than the onset of personal computing, and they're all happening right now, and they're all kind of just going a bit mental. So it's up to us as designers to kind of take advantage of these amazing technologies and really do something with them. He also pointed out a perfect storm with social, cultural, and environmental issues. I am a little bit of a hippie, so this kind of spoke to me. But essentially, these are huge problems that are coming up over the next 5 to 10 years. And again, it's up to us to sort of tackle those designers. So his talk, amongst other things, was about harnessing those new technologies to solve some of these huge problems. And if you're all about the money, essentially that aging demographic, that's about to be your biggest market. So get amongst it. Oh, that one was. It's up to us to design the future. If we don't do it, someone else will. Oh, and remember, you are not God. So in amongst this talk of it's a great time to be a designer and designers can change the world, it was very much a leveling, let's be grounded, let's work with other people. Okay, this is one of my favorites. This is a bit close to my heart at the moment. Without client buy-in, you are just a bit, I'm not going to say it. This came up again and again and again, and it's something that I've sort of felt over the last couple of years. So there's a few talks there about that mention it outright, and the gov.co.uk one is amazing. If you can find it, I couldn't actually find it on YouTube, but they've pretty much revamped their entire digital experience, and they had a CEO at the top that just got it and bought it, and that's the only reason that worked so well. So if you can find the case study in that, it's amazing. But basically it all boiled down to a few key things, get to know them. A lot of us, there's not a lot of time in some projects to sort of get to know the full complement of stakeholders that might be there, but the more you can get to know each and every person and more about the company and the structure of the company, the better you can tailor like what you're giving them, how you communicate with them, and how you guys can work together. Educate them about you. We kind of go in and design stuff and do this crazy design, and you know, we expect them to understand, but they don't know. So the more you can teach them about what the process is, and the more you can like involve them in the process, then the better off your outcomes will be. And yeah, communicate, which pretty much comes out of those other two. Big data. I mean, has anyone not heard of big data? And yeah. No? Okay. Yeah, a lot of people talked about it. There were two talks about it specifically, and a bunch just got mentioned by everyone, basically. So I quite liked this as a definition. Data of such high volume requires technology to process or make sense of the insights. So if you're, one of the talkers carrying a distinction between little data and big data, and even though as designers you're surrounded by personal notes and all this kind of like survey data and that kind of stuff, that's still not big data. Where we're talking about the Amazon, Google's, the Hydrogen Collider, that level of stuff. And a really surprising thing that I didn't know is that we're using like nothing at the moment. Like there's so much more data out there that we can harness and do amazing things with. So my big takeaways were, everyone should know this, combine the quant and the qual. So the quant gives you the what the problem is, what the problem space is, but the qual gives you the why. Why is that a problem? Use the right data. There was a lot of talk about just going out there and just grabbing data, grabbing any kind of survey, asking any kind of question, and then presenting a result and saying, hey, this is a reason to do something. Change your entire website because of this. Make sure you use actual, real data. Don't freak out. I've obviously used my own language there, but don't freak out about all the many sources of data and combining the data. Just like play with it, mold it, and visualize it. A few key things from Kerry's talk. I really like this. I recommend watching hers if you're interested in big data. This was a way to kind of categorize all the different data that comes up. I think created data was things like, authored by the individual, so emails, chats, calls, all that kind of stuff. I won't read through all of this, you can check it out either in my slides or Kerry's. And finally, these were calls to action that came out on the Members' Day. It was a really well organised conference, and Members' Day particularly. These were things that they had surfaced in a global study of service design. Share case studies. If we're going to be changing or doing big things, it really helps to have someone else who's worked in a particular industry say, here are the things I learned about that industry. And there's enough work to go around that doesn't actually hurt you. It's just going to help you and help your reputation. Improve education on design. As I sort of mentioned before, there seems to be, like within clients and within people, and sometimes within designers, not everyone's talking about the same thing. There's different language that we use, and it just makes everything a little bit more difficult. Demonstrate and communicate return on investment. So I think we all come across the concept that design is all a bit fluffy, and we don't want to pay for that. We can't see the outcomes. So there's a big effort to try and define and measure impact. They're looking towards some kind of standard, but even if you don't have one, trying to define upfront how you're going to measure that impact and how you're going to report on it. Link across disciplines. You are not God. Basically, to get the best outcome, we all know multidisciplinary teams. If we can bring in psychologists, economists, scientists, then we just have better outcomes. Service design throughout delivery. So basically, this is service design specific, but getting in there and actually working with the people all the way through until that change has been apparent. And this one I quite like. Use the design community. We've got IxDA here. I'm not sure if we don't have a service design network chapter in Australia, but there are some meetups. And there are places that you can go to share case studies, to share information and to learn. Right. So I see a lot of people out there just kind of nodding. I know this. What's the other bit? What's even there? Well, what are you guys doing about it? Are you doing it? If you are, that's amazing. How are you doing it? You know, client buy-in particularly, as I said, if anyone's like just nailing that, I'll get back later. And are you sharing it? Because this is a great forum for that kind of stuff, and it would really help us out. Because some of that might be obvious to some of you, but it's not that obvious to the rest of you. We all get quite caught up in the general kind of design practice and getting that right. The kind of speaking to the client and that other stuff is a little bit less obvious. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much.